What's going on, guys? Bears with Knives here, and today I'm back again with another knife review, and today I'm going to be talking about the Artisan Cutlery Biome. Now, this is a very interesting knife from Artisan Cutlery, and I'm going to be talking about it today. So here's the knife. I'll give you a quick look at that so you can see the knife. So there we go. Now I'm going to put that off to the side for the moment. Here's the packaging. It comes in pretty standard Artisan packaging. It says Artisan Cutlery on there. They have their Instagram, website, everything like that. So there we go. Let's put that off to the side now. So here's the knife. Now, let's do some size comparisons. So here it is next to the Ontario Rat Model 2. Hopefully you can see that. Next up to another modern traditional style knife in the Benchmade proper. And then last but not least, a traditional case Sawbuster Jr. So there we go. Now, I would like to list some general stats, and I purchased this knife from Blade HQ, where you can purchase this as well. Unfortunately, at the time I'm recording this, they're all out of stock on Blade HQ. They might be in stock somewhere else, I'm not quite sure, but I purchased this knife from there, and all of the stats I'm about to list I got from their website as well. So if they're wrong in any way, don't blame me, blame them. So there we go. Overall length is 6.5 inches. Your blade length is 2.75 inches. Your handle length is 3.875 inches, and your weight is 1.4 ounces. So there we go. Now, the price on this particular knife is $30, which is a really good price. I like that. Very affordable, budget, not going to break the bank. $30 is a very nice price. And there's a couple different versions available for you. You have this one, which is the natural G10 handle. So you can see that very nice natural G10 color. They also have a black G10, a blue G10, and then a G10 and carbon fiber laminate. I believe. So you got a couple different versions if you're not a fan of this natural G10. And they're all the same price. They're all $30, which I really appreciate because some knife companies, they charge, more for different handle materials or different handle colors. So I appreciate that no matter what color you get, they're all going to be the same price. So that's good. Now, let's talk about this knife. So, first thing is the G10 handles. I love the G10 handles on here, especially this natural color. I love that. Looks very, very good. There's a very nice milling patterns as well in the G10 that you can see right there. I just like that little touch a lot. You have a back spring back here. This is a slip joint knife. No pocket clip, but once again, it's a slip joint. I didn't expect there to be a pocket clip. You also have a lanyard hole at the back here if you want to throw a lanyard on this knife, if you wish, which is good. So there we go. Now let's open this knife here. Now this knife is openable in two ways. You have the nail nick, which you can use to open this knife, or you can pinch the blade open. If you don't keep your nails very long, or if you just don't like nail nicks, you can just pinch the blade open. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that the nail nick is only on the one side. So you can see that the nail nick is only on one side. So there we go, but you can pinch the blade open if you want, which I love. I love when slip joint knives give you the option to pinch the blade open instead of forcing you to use the nail nick. So that's good. Now here's the blade. This is a very, very nicely stonewashed blade. I love stonewashed blades. It looks very good. And I believe all of the blades in the line are stonewashed as well. So that's nice. You have the Artisan logo right there. And then you have the blade steel. Now the blade steel on this knife is 12C27N, which is a very good steel, in my opinion, for this price and for a slip joint knife. On a lot of traditional slip joint knives, you get things like just stainless steel or things like that. So 12C27 is a pretty good steel for a slip joint, and especially at this price. So I'm very happy with the steel choice for this. So I like that. Now the ergonomics on this knife are pretty good. You can see that there's a very subtle finger trail right here, and then a very nice curve to the rest of the handle. So it lends itself to a very nice, comfortable, ergonomic grip. So I appreciate that. Next thing I'm going to talk about is the carry. This knife carries very, very well because it is so light at 1.4 ounces and because it is so thin. I'll compare it to the Sawbuster Jr. You can see just how thin this knife is. It's very, very thin, carries very well. So, you can carry this knife in basically two ways. You can just throw it in the bottom of your pocket, and it will just kind of rattle around in there, or you can carry it in a slip as well if you would like. But the good thing, if you're gonna throw this knife in the bottom of your pocket, you don't really have to worry about it getting scratched up. If you're familiar with more traditional knives, a lot of them have, nice nickel silver bolsters and really nice bone and stuff like that, so you might not want to throw them in the bottom of your pocket and they'll get scratched up and dinged up. The thing that's good about this knife being all G10 is that G10 is very durable, so you can throw this in the bottom of your pocket and it's not really going to get scratched up very much, and with the stonewash blade, so you don't really have to worry about, beating this knife up too bad if you're just throwing it in the bottom of your pocket. But like I said, you can carry it in a slip as well. It works great either way. Next thing I want to talk about is the fit and finish. This knife is very well finished. You can see that the blade came centered, which is good. Hopefully you can see that. The knife also has a very nicely fitted backspacer. Or back spring rather. That is probably the thing you will see most on traditional knives or modern traditional knives. You will see the back spring is not well fitted. This one is pretty well fitted. Hopefully you can see this right here. There is a tiny gaps, but they're not substantial, and it's a $30 knife, so I can forgive a little bit of gapping right there. But overall, the action is smooth out of the box. It's not stick slippy or anything like that. It's very smooth all the way through. Came sharp out of the box, so the quality on this knife seems to be very good, at least this one I have. So I enjoy that. I'm glad that the quality seems to be quite good. So there we go. Next thing I want to mention is this knife has a half stop. So you can see that right there. You close the blade. When it gets to halfway, it kind of stops right there, and then you can just close it the rest of the way. I love slip joint knives. Having a half stop is just an added safety feature. I'm very glad that it's on this knife. So there's half stop, which is great, and I always appreciate on any traditional knife. So there we go. Next thing I want to mention is that this is a very people-friendly knife, especially with this nice natural G10. It's not going to scare anybody, It's not all blacked out or anything like that. And plus, it's just a traditional knife. Traditional knives tend to be a lot less scary to people that tend to be scared of knives. Just because, how you open it with two hands and stuff like that, it's not as scary to people as your more modern folders. So that is good. And then the last thing on the good side to mention is that this is a very legal knife. Since it is a slip joint and it's non-locking, you can carry this in places like the UK and things like that. The blade is also under 3 inches as well. So once again, legal in the UK, things like that, or if you live in an area where you have to have a blade under 3 inches, this will work for that. So very, very good overall. So that wraps up the good of this knife. So what do I like about this knife? So first thing is the price, $30, very affordable. I like that. You got a couple different versions. It's got a half stop on there, which is always great. It's pretty people friendly as well as legal. It's fully ambidextrous, being a slip joint, so that's good. Carries very well, either in a slip or just in the bottom of the pocket. It's very lightweight. It's got comfortable ergonomics. The fit and finish is very, very nice on this particular knife as well. You can pinch the blade open if you don't like the nail nick, and you have a nice lanyard hole on here. So that's basically the good of this knife. So now let's talk about things I don't like about this knife. So first thing is this knife is slightly too thick behind the edge, in my personal opinion. So hopefully you can see this. It's got a fairly thin blade, and it cuts fine. I'll say that right now. It cuts fine, it cuts decent, but I just want to show you what I'm talking about here. So, you can see that the stock on the Biome compared to the Sawbuster Jr. is pretty similar. The Biome here is just slightly thinner. So blade stock is good, and like I said, it cuts fine. But behind the edge, hopefully you can see this behind the edge, it is slightly thicker than I would prefer. There's kind of a lot of steel going in behind the edge. Compared to a traditional knife, you can see that on the case. There's barely anything behind that edge. So the case tends to be just a little more slicey. So it's not a big deal, but just in the future, I would like to see them grind that down a little thinner behind the edge. And then probably the last thing I don't like about this knife is there's no tang of the blade. So for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, or for those of you who might not be familiar with traditional knives, a lot of traditional knives have a extended tang here. So you can see you have the blade, and then you have this tang portion here. And what that allows you to do if you're holding the knife and using it, if the blade were to close, that extended tang would stop the blade from closing on your fingers. And I really, really like having that on a traditional knife. On this knife, you don't have that extended tang right there. So if this knife were to close, it's going to get you. It's not going to get you bad because this back portion is relatively unsharpened and, it's not too bad. But still, I would just prefer to have an extra tang of the blade. Now, if you're a hardcore slip joint guy and you're used to carrying knives like this, then that is probably not going to bother you. But if you prefer safety above anything else with a slip joint knife, then that might be a problem for you. It is just something to mention. I haven't found it to be too bad. The spring is relatively strong. It's definitely not as strong as the Sawbuster or something like that, but I don't think you would get cut too bad with this. But like I said, just something to mention, if safety is your number one priority, this doesn't have an extended tang or anything. It's very similar in that way to the Benchmade proper, where they don't have extended tangs. So there we go. That's really the only two things I don't like about this knife, is that it's a little too thick behind the edge for being a modern traditional style knife, and then there's no extended tang or anything like that to kind of protect you from the back of that blade. And that wraps up the bad. So what are my final thoughts on this knife? My final thoughts is that this is a really cool modern traditional knife. It's $30. There's a couple versions. It carries very well. It's people friendly. It's legal in a lot of areas. And, that is very good, and I like that quite a bit. And like I said, it's a very good attempt at a modern traditional knife. It's very affordable. It's not going to break the bank, anything like that. So it's very, very good. I would say if you like this knife, if you're in an area where you need a type of knife like this, I would definitely recommend it because it is so affordable. It is definitely one of the most affordable modern traditional pocket knives I've ever seen. And it's a fairly good try, and like I said, the fit and finish seems to be very well, so I definitely can recommend this to people who live in the UK or things like that. I think that it's a pretty good modern traditional knife, especially for the price. For me, I still prefer a Sawbuster Jr. I mentioned this in my case knife collection video that I did. The Sawbuster is one of my favorite slip joints for actually using. The ergonomics on the Sawbuster are just better than the Artisan, and you have that extra tang of the blade, and the case is just a little more slicey. So for me, I still prefer a Sawbuster Jr., but this is still a really, really nice knife. So if you really like this knife, then go ahead and buy it. There is absolutely nothing really wrong with it in my eyes. Just for me, I think the Sawbuster Jr. is still a little better. I would prefer this over this, but this is still a very good knife. So either way, that wraps up the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. This is the Artisan Cutlery Biome one last time. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you all for the continued support, and I will see you next time.